welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful. I'm back in the studio today with a little update and a couple of new things. So if you're just joining me for the very first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you do, please give me a thumbs up. Click on subscribe and the little bell so you don't miss out on future videos. So I have been working on a series of journals using vintage books. And so there are multiple projects going on at one time. It started with the 5 Little Peppers. I'm getting close to finish with this one. My goal was to get several going at once, finish them up, and put them in my Etsy shop. So eventually they will be there, at least most of them. So again, it started with this one in this series. So you can watch from start to finish how I create one of these. And there will be a link down in the description for the entire series. So just start at the very beginning with part 1 of 5 Little Peppers if you have not done this before. From there, I started creating more journals simultaneously and pointing out the differences if I did something different. Then I do a video of, whatever I've been working on, kind of keeping you up to speed. So like I said, it's been a few days now since I have done a video. I have wanted to kind of finish some things up and me, start something new. Before I let myself do that, I really wanted to kind of get some of these finished up. So I'm going to show you what I've done. And then I do have a couple little tutorial things. Not sure how long this video is going to be, but I want to catch you up because I have changed what I'm doing on some that you might have been following along. So for those of you who have been following along and commenting, thank you. I do appreciate your support and your questions and comments because they help me kind of steer what I want to work on next too. So the next one that I had worked on was this one, and this little one I have not gone back too much and finished up pockets or anything. So I really kind of need to maybe do this one on camera. Don't know if I will get to it today, but it's the next one that I kind of need to go through from the insides to decide if it's finished or not. So I think I want to work on that one a little bit more. When I'm finished completely, I will do a flip through of all of them before they go in the Etsy shop so that you can see exactly page by page. So this one is one that I actually did more, and I'm thinking this one's finished. So I've added some things into it. So I do want to go through and show you this one because there's actually even a little tutorial to it. And then same with the Ontario Reader. If you've been watching, you can see that I have finished my spine cover. So let me go through this one first and just show you where I'm at and then what I've added, because this will include a little tutorial. So this one has a different binding, and this one started, I think, this one I did as an example, so I didn't do it on camera because I had never done this before. So at part 9, I did start another one with the similar binding, making some changes that I thought I wanted to do. So I will show you the update of that one as well. But this was my sample that I had done. So what I've added since my last time you saw this was I went ahead and put some beads on my little tassels. These I had originally kind of braided them, but it was waxed cord, so I didn't really like how it hung at all. It needed some weight to kind of make them dangle nicely. So I took some actual new beads. So for the beads, I actually went to just my local Walmart and bought this inexpensive metal bulk bead, spacer beads. And so they're just, I don't even know what kind of metal they're made out, just very cheap metal. And 4 different colors, and then some jump rings and little closures to add to make dangles. But I don't like how new they are. I want them to look vintage. So my favorite product to use is this from Modern Masters Rust Activator. It's meant to go over iron oxide paint that they also sell, so that you would paint any surface with this iron oxide paint and then put this chemical on it, and it will immediately rust it. That's my favorite product to use. There are other ways to rust, and I've done videos on them. There are other videos out there where you use vinegar, salt, and hydrogen peroxide. I did do a test with the different metals and different products. This, to me, still works the best and the quickest. So you can use the other ones. They just may take a little bit longer. And each of those metals, because they start out a different color and probably are a different base metal, come out a different way. So in some cases, I've done things like gold paper clips, and they come out this rusty finish. You know, I use the little bulb pins and different things like that. Bulldog clips, little mini ones. So you may have seen me use those things. In fact, on one of the other journals, I used it as a closure. So just to show you, I ended up doing the beads, and then they're all mixed in here together, so I couldn't tell you at this point which color was which. But you can see they just kind of look grungy, some more rusty, some get the green verdigris patina because they have a lot of copper content. So just a variety. My goal is just to dull them down. I don't care if they're still silver or if they're gold or copper, what they are. I just want to dull them down and have them look vintage and grungy. So I've done that. I actually even took some little new, I did them all, so I don't have an example to show you, but these were brand new little gold typewriter key charms, and I treated them also, so you can see that they just now look old and grungy. So I just thought these would be cute things to hang on, you know, your journals as little dangles. And then of course the findings that you need, jump rings and little lobster clasp, same thing. So I spent one day just doing experiments and getting these all grunged up and cleaned up. So that is what I did on for my tassels. I've done the same thing, you know, with the little eyelets, is also grunged those up. Same thing, they were shiny gold, and then now I have a little bin. You've seen me use them in previous videos, but they just kind of dull down, and I don't really care what color they end up as long as they don't look new. Okay, so that was the tassels. And then for the closure, again, I just used one of my grungy eyelets, and you've seen me do this before where I just put the ribbon through my hole that I punched, then put the eyelet in, and then it captures it, and it's kind of all in one thing. Not very creative, nothing. I use this method a lot. Sometimes I'll put a little vintage button in there and capture it that way also. But it's just a simple way to do it. And because I'm selling these as naked journals, this allows you to add your own little charm or button or thing to kind of make it your own. For the tie, I used just some white sari silk and then my distressed oxide sprays and inks. And this is a combination of different colors to just try to get it close. I think I used vintage photo for this in the ink and also the oxide. If you're not familiar with those products, they are different. The oxide will actually oxidize, so it is activated with water, whereas the ink is a permanent ink that's not going to oxidize like the distress oxides do. So you just get a different variation in color. I think I also threw in another one. I'm not even sure which one it was, but I just kind of mixed those so it would have this just really rusty kind of look that went with the cover. Okay, so the next thing that I did, and what I have a little tutorial for, which I'll just jump into that real quick since we're here, is a couple little things. Is a lot of the books that I am finding in vintage stores, antique stores, whatever, were like this one is a speller, or sometimes they're old library books. So I'll have maybe the due date thing still in there, or the library card holder and card still there. And so I saved those. I don't have many, actually. I think I only have one left in here. But I thought I just need to create the same shape card and size because I do like to put those in the book. And then I had this. And then I think I had, this is not an old one, but a little due date slip. So I've created my own version. I just did it on Photoshop Elements. I didn't scan an old one. I actually, you know, picked the font and put the lines in and chose the color and all that. So I've created a library card and a due date slip. And in my case, I printed these on manila paper, and I printed these on some tea stain cardstock that I had. And then I also created the pocket, and again with the tea stained cardstock. So you can adjust the size that you make these. I actually somewhere, I don't know if it's in here, made with my scrap from cutting my cardstock. I made a little teeny tiny one. I'm not sure. Here it is. I made some little small ones. These are actually out of the scrap from the manila paper because my manila paper was 9 by 12. So you can do them any size once you kind of understand the pattern. So I'm going to show that to you today. And then I think these two, I think I'm going to put in a freebie file, you know, on my Google Drive. So I'll put the link for you down in the description so you can actually have those as a freebie. Okay, so to do the card, and then we'll get back to that, is super quick and easy. And like I said, once you have a pattern, so I would, you know, take a picture of this with your phone, save this with a screenshot or something. Or actually, I maybe even scan this and put it also in that freebie file. Maybe I'll do that and that'll be easier. Okay, so what you'll need to make this is just a piece of cardstock. I'm using just some tea stain cardstock. You can use anything you want. You can. This is just out of manila paper, so you can do it out of decorative paper, anything you want. Okay, so you want a piece that, if you want, my pattern I made to the actual one. So that's what my sizes go to. Again, you can change those to fit and then make a card to fit. Okay, so for this case, it's 7.5 by 5 inches. And that way, if you're using an 8.5 by 11 US letter size, you'll get 2 of these with just a little bit of scrap left over. So I've cut 2. And then what you want to do, you're going to need a ruler for this, because I'm going to do this by hand. If you have this type of tool, this is from Recollections, and it's just a little scoreboard and cutter. So one of them is a cutter and this one's the score tool. You could use something like this. It makes it really quick and easy once you know, figure out where all your lines need to be. You can also just do it with scissors or, you know, any type of cutter. So I'm just going to do it as if you don't have a lot of tools. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to need to make a measurement on one end that's 1/2 inch. I like to use this ruler. It's for quilter's ruler, and you can find it in the sewing section of your whatever store. I like this because it really gets my lines straight both directions. So I am going to go to my 1/2 inch, and I'm just going to do this on one side, and I need to fold it there. So if you have any type of tool that you can make a score mark, I'm just going to use this little scoring tool. I'm just going to run that along, and that's going to help me fold that. I don't need to even draw a line. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but there's a little bit of a line there you can see. And that's going to just make it easier for me to fold. So I'm going to fold that. And you want to do this first just to make the second step easier without having to measure. So next I want a fold again halfway, but I want it to capture nicely in this crease. That's why I say this is easier if you do this one first, because then you don't really need to measure. If I were to measure my 1/2 inch and then my 3.5 inches, which is what this will become, 3.5 and 3.5, if I get that off even a little bit, it won't tuck nicely in there. So make this fold first, and then you don't have to worry about it. You're just going to fold it, put it in there, and then that's your fold, and I didn't even have to measure that. So that just makes that easier. This is just a bone folder. You can use the back end of your scissors or something like that to fold it. Okay, I'll need those actually. Okay, so I have my 2 folds, the dotted lines. And now I also need a 1/2 inch here where I'm going to cut some away. So let's draw that one. Part of it's going to be cut and part of it's going to be folded. So I could, if I want to just save time, I can find my 1/2 inch here. And I know you can't see this, but from where my crease is over to this fold is going to be a score. So I could actually just do this. And for me, because my eyes aren't great, I'm going to actually do a pencil line where I need to cut this away. Okay. Then the other thing that I need to do is I'm also going to need to cut 1/2 inch from the fold all the way to the end where this is folded. So I want another line there. So I'm going to go again 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to cut this to my fold. Okay, so that is all my lines. simple, simple. So what I need to do here is I'm going to do my cutaways first. And this one, because this is going to be my, I should show you how this is going to go together. This is going to be the back. I'm going to fold this over and then fold this up. So I like to, you know, be authentic to the design of the original, and I'm just going to angle those cuts. It's going to get glued down that way, so you're not going to see them. It just makes it easier. So I don't need to measure. I'm just going to eyeball. Like I said, they're not going to show. So I'm going to make that little notch. And cut that out. And then I also need to cut out this little square corner, and I can kind of angle it. I could do it straight, but I'm just going to angle it a little bit. Same on this side. Okay, so those are cut away. And then I need to cut this off, and I want to do this one straight. So I could cut this first. And then cut this away. Oops. This is where if you're not really straight like me, my hands are kind of shaking this morning. Because this is going to show, this is the front edge. So if you have that trimmer, you'll be able to cut this straight. Okay. Now I need to fold this one where I've scored. And then this, you see that the card had some rounded corners, so you do need to either do it by hand. This is much easier. If you do it by hand, if you don't have a punch, you can just cut one and then take the little piece and move it over to the other side and then cut the other one, and they'll match. So this is much easier, and you'll want to use the large size. This has 3 different sides. This is from We Are Memory Keepers. And so I'm going to use the 10mm corner, and I'm just going to punch both of those. This one's easier if you fold it closed. And that's it. Okay. And then the easiest, you can glue these. The easiest thing I have found to make these, if you're going to do a bunch of them quick, is to use one of these. They're just the little Tombow adhesive dots. And you'll just go here along the edge. Along the edge. And you have your pocket. Now, the only other thing that I do ahead possibly is if I want to make this look a little bit more distressed. These I have not done. This one I had done out of manila. Is before you put it together, use your distress oxides or inks and do that first. You know, just get the edges and all of that. Because like you can see what happened here is I did it after. And so it shows my line where I had glued that. So if you want it to, if you're a perfectionist and you want it to look really pretty, I would do the distressing before, like this one. I just did the edges. Just do that before you put it together. And then there, you can decorate these further once you know what journal they're going to go into. So you can make these up, just mass make them ahead of time. And like I said, you can make them taller, shorter, narrower, whatever you want to do. So I will put this in the freebie also. Okay, and then let's see, get this out of my way. So for this one, I took my date due and I just did just like they do in a real library book, and just ran a piece of the tape and just taped it at the top. That way you can write under here, you know, have a little secret journaling going on. Okay, and then again, you can make these out of anything that you want. So this one I actually made out of some book page that's just doubled up so that it's thicker. And then I actually even took this and ran it through my sewing machine just to stitch around, just to give a little more interest. And then of course use my distress oxide on that. And then same with the card, I kind of just grunched it up a little bit more. You can see I had to trim this one narrower because I already had made this pocket, and it's a different size. So I think when I finalize this and put it in, I will actually move those over a little bit so that you'll be able to trim a little bit more off of each side without having to scale your card down. You can also, you know, before you print it, change the size of your card, that sort of thing too. Okay, and then the other thing that I made, just real quick, is if you've been watching, I haven't done it with all of them, but I had all of these were some of my wider scraps from when I was trimming all my folios for the journal. And I just put them together in little scrappy notepads that I need to finish these up. But I went ahead and did one for this journal just to show you just one option of a way to finish it up. So one thing that I like to do is just get another piece of paper that's larger than your scraps, the largest one, as kind of a cover. And again, you can decorate that up however you want, stamps, stickers, you know, whatever you want. But on the inside, before I put this cover on, I take all those little scraps in their bundle and I run it through my sewing machine with no thread in my machine. And so it's really quick to do that. But what that does is it makes this perforated. And that way, if you want to use this as just little decorative things to tear off and collage with in your journal, you can either, you know, just tear off sections, or you can, you know, tear off the whole piece. So it's just kind of a little perforated notepad of little scraps, you know, just that you can use in the journal. And normally, you know, I'm going to make a bunch and they're going to end up in different places. But if you're working on one journal and you use all your scraps the time you're working on your journal, everything gets tied together because these are scraps from the actual pages that I may have cut off in the actual journal. So I have simultaneously, you know, 4, 5, 6 going at once. So they're going to kind of all interchange. But again, because they're naked journals, all the things are kind of naked too. So then to finish it off, I took a couple of my little eyelets for my cover. You could do some kind of decorative stitching. I'll probably do some different things on the other ones just so that I can show you the different options, different kind of stitchings you can do for the tops of little notepads. This one, super easy, just punch your holes and put your eyelets in. And then I just used a little kitchen twine that I had dyed to tie that together. So just cute little scrappy pads that will be able to be used in the journal. And then I went through really kind of and just took the cards that I showed in the last video, and I just kind of went through, and anywhere I had a pocket for this one, I'm just trying to include, you know, a scrap of paper, just little things just to put something there. I did add this little tab. I had a little tear on this page, and so I covered it with a tab and then one of my strips that I have made, which now I spent a day doing that too. I had another pile, if you watched the last video, of strips. So I've now processed those and made more little fun bands. Added a couple there. So I think this is just a piece of scrap that was a good size. So I just put it in here for collage. I think I had already added that one there. Another card. So these were ones that I did the other day in the last video, and I think this one's pretty much finished now. So this was just my sample for the one that I'm working on currently, but I think it's pretty good. Another couple of things here, piece of map and the card, nothing there, and a couple more here. And again, this was just using up all the rest of the little torn scraps. And that's it. So this journal is finished, okay? So the next one then I was working on was this one. And this was the Ontario Reader, which I have not gone and done anything on the inside, I don't think. I haven't done anything other than what I showed on camera. Let's put it that way. So this one, I've just done things on the outside. I didn't film it because it's the same thing that I've done before. I did finish my little slow stitch piece. And somebody had asked me what slow stitching was. And I kind of forget that, you know, you may not have been watching my videos consistently for a while. But slow stitching is really just taking embroidery stitches that you may have learned, or, beginner stitches. Nothing, doesn't have to even be anything fancy. It's kind of like doing mixed media collage sort of idea, but with fabric. You don't use a hoop, which is really nice. It's very much more loose and free and imperfect. And you're really just kind of, it's really meditative. For me, I don't go in with a real big plan. I like to just have it kind of be intuitive, like intuitive art sort of thing. So just super relaxing. Like I said, in a mixed media sort of thing, as you layer. Like these are some cut apart doilies I used, and I made some yo-yos or Suffolk puffs, however you want to call them. Added some little beads. In the last video where I showed this, I had showed some metal parts I was going to add. I didn't add some of the things I thought I would, but I did use those little eyelet rings in like washers. And I think when I was mentioning it, I think it was sounding like the metal was going to show. And for these, I just really use them as a base, and they're completely covered up. So you don't really even know that they're metal underneath. It's just something to kind of stitch around. So I finished that one up. I'll try to do little close-ups here so you can see all the little stitching. So it does take a little while, longer than it looks, because you're really just relaxing when you're doing it and kind of going along. But I'm really happy. I added some beads here and there. And then I went ahead and just glued it on. So nothing new there. I really like how that turned out. I love how grungy it is, and that I put some of my embroidery, but in a much different way than the other ones that I had done. So, and then for the closure on this one, I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I used my bulldog clips, and I don't know if these will even come off now because I did glue them. So you can not glue them. I put a dab of glue because I had my lace is captured in there. So basically the lace comes around the front and folds over to the back. So I put a little dab of glue on that and just trimmed it off. And so that way it stays. And then I just ran it through here. So it's just another little element that is just a different use for a bulldog clip to hold my lace closure. Okay, and then I don't think I did anything. I think this is probably one that I still need to go through and reinforce any pages if there's little tears, that kind of thing. So I still need to go through this one to finish the inside, and I still need to finish the insides of this one. So those two I'll be working on. Now, let me just pull this over here since this is what I'm working on. So this was my sample that I was going to do, that I did off camera to just figure out how I was going to do this binding, which is a Coptic stitch, and it's an open binding, but I didn't have it as exposed as I wanted. So I did this one on camera that you saw me stitch this up. Again, if you haven't seen this video, this is probably episode 13 or 14, I can't remember, but the playlist is down below. This journal, because it's a different sort of binding, I kept track of where this one started because it's all in the same playlist. So this started with part 9 of this vintage book journal series. So part 9 starts this journal, and then I left off because I wanted to do something different to the cover. I had been doing the slow stitch spine covers, but because this spine is going to end up being exposed, I wanted to do something maybe more interesting on the cover with some stitching. So my original idea was to stitch the actual book cover. I saw this on somewhere, I think Instagram or somewhere, and I couldn't find, what I saw was just watching someone actually stitch it. So I couldn't find like a video where they showed how they prepped the cover to make the holes and all that kind of stuff. So I did this one, and I showed this in a video. I prepped this cover, was 2 halves that don't go to the same book. I tried to make them kind of match each other because I'm going to end up using them in a book. And I just used my pokey tool, I call it. It's a little awl, to make the holes. And it was making the holes a little bigger than I really wanted I ended up using all 6 strands of my embroidery thread just because the hole was so big. It was really hard to punch this without, going through further than I needed to. This is tapered. If I made it just to there and got all the way through, that's fine. But they want to get down to here. My hole's really large. And then the other thing is it made it hard because I had to do so much. It was really poking into my hand. I didn't like that. I found this that I had. This is an actual awl that at least is bigger. Some of them are even bigger. You can find them. This is not an awl, but you can find them even bigger around, which would be much better for punching. But again, it's bigger around than I wanted it to be. This one, when I punched, is even bigger than the other one. So I thought, and also it would be faster if I had something power. So I went and I bought this little thing at Harbor Freight, 20 bucks. It was on sale. I think it was normally 35 or 6, 20 bucks. So I got it, and it's wired. You can buy them battery, but then they're much more expensive. But I thought it's adjustable in how fast it goes, so that was perfect. But the problem was it didn't come, I think this came with this little kit, which is more for like buffing and sanding and that sort of thing. It's a little rotary tool. So it didn't have anything for drilling. It's just polishing, engraving, etching, and carving. So I bought this little set at Walmart because it looked like it had a little tiny one, which is this size. I don't know what size that is, but it's pretty small. And that worked okay, but it was pretty much the same size as the hole that I had, and I really want smaller holes. So I did find online, I don't have them, I think they'll be delivered today, some jewelry size bits. I'm only telling you all this because if you don't have these tools, you don't want to spend a lot of money, and it's not as easy sometimes as going and buying the tool with the kit it comes with and having it be everything you need. For example, this has a chuck. The chuck is this little part where you put your drills in, your little drill bits. Well, because it was a kit that was meant for this, all of these, you see how big around those are? 1/8 inch around. All of these fit into that larger little collet. They call this a collet. I guess the black part's the chuck, or this is the collet. So they only had this size, came with this tool. So I'm only mentioning all this so if you want to do this project, I'm showing you what I'm figuring out to do. So I had to actually go get, I bought these little drill bits, but my collet wasn't small enough to hold those drill bits, and some of them are larger, some of them are 8 inch at the end there, but some of them, you see, they get smaller and smaller. So I had to go and buy this little set. I just put it in this container, but this is a collet set. So it has a variety of sizes so that you can put those little tiny drill bits in your tool. So I ended up needing to buy this, which is still not small enough, a collet set. And those weren't expensive. I think the collet set was maybe $8 or something like that. But now I've had to order online another set of jewelry size drill bits, which will be more the size of my needles that I'm going to use. So this is just information for you if you're wanting to do something like this. And this is why I had not finished this, is I did not have the right tool. So I still don't. Hopefully I'll get the other part today. But I went ahead and finished this one. It does turn out that for things like this, your hole does need to be bigger because you're going in the same hole multiple times to get that little flower. So for this kind of stitch, if I want to use less floss threads, I would want a smaller hole. Okay, so I'm going to try it again once I get the right tools. But in the meantime, I wasn't happy with this. The other thing I wasn't happy about is because when you puncture that, it really pushes the book cover through. I think that would also depend on how old your book is and how, this one's pretty old. It's kind of delaminating. The layers are coming apart. So this one, if you have a newer book that the cover is really hard, it's going to be harder to punch through probably, but you might not get this much material like coming out the back and coming apart. But what's going to happen now is when I want to go and put my fabric or whatever to cover this so that I don't see all of this, that's going to be harder to camouflage because it's bulky here now. So to me, that's why I would like to do this with finer threads so it's not so thick on the back side. So this was my experiment. I'm going to turn it into a book because this is the way you learn, right? But for I didn't want to do any additional. So I just took a doily, cut apart a doily, and then I just used the same colors that I had used around the edge and just kind of colored up that doily a little bit by stitching my embroidery on that before I glued it to the front. So I just glued it on there. So I do like how that turned out. It's going to be a really cute cover, but this was my practice for what I want to do on this one. Okay, so then, of course, you know me, I'm impatient. And so I didn't want to wait for all the tools. So I went ahead and started and just decided to go do something different. Part of it is I just really couldn't get my needle here. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do on the cover as far as a design. I really wanted to just do something that had nothing to do with this background. Just ignore the background completely because it's really pretty faded. You can't even hardly read the words. So that was my intention. And so I made a copy of the cover so that I could maybe draw something, but I'm really not a good freehand artist at all. So I was kind of using what I could see there to create some simple patterns that I could embroider. And I thought, well, I can do that around the edge. And I was drawing it on here first before I went to my actual book, because I need to punch all the holes ahead. So you really want to have your design drawn on there. So my intention was two ideas. Use this pen if I was daring enough to just draw it right on to my cover. This is from Pilot, this friction pen. And if you haven't used one, they're great for embroidery things because you can remove the ink with heat. So you draw it on there. Normally embroidering, you're going to cover up wherever your line is anyway, it won't matter. But if you make a mistake and change your design, you just use a hot iron and it will disappear the ink. So that was kind of my plan. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll get the whole design, tape it to the cover if this is exactly the same size, and then just punch my holes right through with my drill, get this stuck to the front. So I'm not sure how I'll go about it. I'm just sharing my experiments with you. Maybe you have a better idea. Maybe you've done this before. Maybe you know the video I'm talking about and can steer me to find it. But anyway, that was my idea. But I wasn't really loving whatever design I was coming up with, and I was impatient, like I said. So I decided I just want to cover the whole thing. And so I just started grabbing some scraps that I had out of my little scrap thing. Actually, I'll show you that too, just for the heck of it. If you've been watching me for a long time, you may have seen this tray probably, I don't know, a year ago, who knows. I had started making these little cards and things with buttons because I would have these like little button cards, old ones. And I decided, some of them were damaged. So I decided to tear them apart, and actually use inks and oxides and things to even distress them up more if they didn't look old enough, and create these little patches and things that I could end up, using on journals or cards, or, I could put this one right here on the cover if I wanted to do that, and that looks really cute. So I had this tray, so I grabbed actually just some of the scraps that I had on that tray, and then some more, but I just kind of grabbed some things and then just started stitching them together. I kind of liked the fact that I was going to see this book cover through and around because I like the color of it. So I didn't want to do like I normally do and have a whole backing on this because I want to see through all these holes. So because this was burlap and super hard to work with until I got it going, I did put a piece of my scrim, my it's like cheesecloth, muslin, something like that, that you have, just a scrap, just to be able to stitch these two pieces together. So I'm just, I'm kind of going tone on tone again, at least at this point. Just these were the threads I had out on my board. And then I'm just doing some stitching here and there. It's subtle in some areas. Just stitching on that little doily here and there. And now I've added this one. I need to do a lot more to get it attached. But this is kind of just getting my base put together. And then this was another piece from a much larger, this I actually had used on the other journal. This was a piece I had cut for the corner. So I cut out one of these little thistle-y looking parts to that. And just as kind of a little focal point, sort of looks like a plant of some kind of thing. So I'm thinking of stitching that on there and then just adding some more. I may add some buttons. Who knows what all go on here by the time I'm finished. But I decided I do like this better than what I was thinking about for this cover. So, that's just kind of how I go. I pick something up that needs to be worked on. And if I get stuck like I did with this, I just change what I want to do. And in the meantime, while I'm thinking about it, like I could even add this somewhere. While I'm thinking about it, I just pick up something else and try to finish something. So that's where I'm at. I have a lot of little moving parts, as you can see, different things going. But I want to get some of these journals finished up because I have another new one that I need to start. So I think that's it. If you have any questions, I think I covered everything I wanted to. If I didn't, if I missed something, please let me know down in the comments. So I'm going to get back to it. Have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.